Ready.
All right, I am here with the great Cinnamon Mancini. Cinnamon is a phenomenal psychic medium. She's also an intuitive investor. I met Cinnamon at the Body Mind Spirit Celebration Expo. Actually, she was one of the first people that I met. And I was drawn to her dog, Salana. And when I met Salana, I was like, oh, you have a blockchain dog. So I knew instantly that she was a crypto investor, and me and her have hit it off since. Now, some people say, hey, if you're psychic, why don't you give me some lottery numbers, right? But better than that, I think that we can give you some good investment tips. And so that's what we're here to do today. So, Cinnamon, thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to see if I can call Solana up here. What do you think?
Sure,
Solana,
absolutely.
come on, let's say hello. Here she comes. She's probably going to see you, Marissa. She's going to
I
love
know, right? Oh, hey, Salana. Hey, I miss you. Oh,
it.
I love blockchain dogs.
So just to give you an idea, Solana will be 4 years old in August. So that is about the time frame. So what we're in 2026 right now. So
Hmm.
that would have been 2022 is when she came to me. And so she's been my blockchain dog since 2022. And I'm pretty sure if you look up the price of Solana back then, it was somewhere around $8 or $14 or
Hmm.
$12. So that's about, and I started with my investment in Solana all the way up at the top with at 260. I followed it down 260, 240, watched it go all the way down to 100, made a small entry, and then watched it drop all the way down to $8 a share.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah. So definitely Solana was my, well, and then I have a cat. My cat is Satoshi, and I don't know what.
Ah, I love that.
So if that gives you an idea of where my investment strategy is, it would be between Satoshi and Solana.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty accurate because you and I have talked about crypto and what you prefer. So this goes into my first question. Who's your favorite crypto CEO?
Well, since I can't pick Michael Saylor, because technically he is Microstrategy and that's a stock, right? That's an equity. I would definitely say hands down Anatoly from Solana for sure. For sure. And you know what's interesting, when I first got introduced to Solana, at one point in time, I spent time, I was a Marine, a United States Marine. And so I spent time at Camp Pendleton. And not far from Camp Pendleton, there's a little beach called Solana Beach. And so when I first saw Salana, I was like, wow, I've been to that beach. That beach is beautiful and it's amazing. And so that's what kind of first got my curiosity up. And then I started looking into what they were doing over there. I started to learn what blockchain was. And I was like, yep, this is a good fit. And maybe even just mentioning for your guest that we talk about intuitive investing. If something kind of stands out to you, like Solana stood out to me, and I kind of had that familiarity with it, maybe that's a nod from the spirit world to say, hey, we're bringing you this familiarity. You do your part. We did our part. We brought it to you to look into. Now you do your part in human world and make your investigation. And so I think back then when it was $260 a share, I bought like, just like a couple shares of it or something because that's just, that's where it was. And then who was the guy that messed everything up? Friedman, right?
Oh
Was
yeah,
that
Sam Bankman Friedman or
Freed?
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And he loved it too. He knew what they were doing was good too. It's just he wrapped them up in all of his nonsense.
Hmm.
And it's like they just couldn't shake it, right? They just
Yeah.
all the bad publicity and things I think that came, but it didn't mean that the work that they were doing, the software that they were putting together, the engineers that they had working on that blockchain weren't doing incredible things. It's just that the bad guys and the good guys both could see value
Hmm.
in the Solana blockchain.
Yeah,
It's
no, for sure. I remember when it went down to $8 a coin, I got a bunch of it. And they were
Yes,
having outages at the time.
they
So
were.
yeah, and everyone was like doom and gloom about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is an
Yeah.
opportunity. This is
Yes.
a layer one. This is a solid layer one. There's a lot of projects on it. And even though a lot of them were maybe meme coins at the time and maybe still are to a certain extent, I knew that was going to change over time. So and here we are today. And granted, it's still down. It's $88 or something like that today, but it's
Seriously
going to go
undervalued.
up.
Yeah, for sure it's undervalued. And I think that's to their benefit, right? Because I was just at the summit, the 2026 Abundance Summit that Peter Diamandis puts on, and his guy, I did not get the name of his guy, I can't remember it actually. But it's the second in line to Anatoly. And somebody said to him, "Oh, Solana's doing great. Like there are lots of developers, a lot of money, quickest, fastest, cheapest, all the good." And he said, "Look," he said, "it's still new. It's still the Wild West out there." I don't think he said those words, but he said we're still new into this. So there's a real humility of what they're doing, and maybe even that dark cloud with this whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing really gave them an opportunity to just dig in with grit to just keep making a better and better and better product. And you're right, I remember those outages, and I'm like, in my mind, what I thought was that's great because
Yeah.
better that they stumble while things are still new because this was back in like 2022,
Mhm.
2023. It was still early, and they were able to go in and fix it. Well, now, like if you stop the bleeding, you know where the wound is. It's kind of like a bone. It breaks and it grows back stronger,
Mhm.
right? And so, yeah, it's amazing that they're able to stay at the level that they are. There's a lot of blockchains out there. I'm going to guess it's going to be like television sets. You're going to have like two or three or four that will make the final cut. And until then, it's kind of anybody's guess who's going to be in the future, who's still going to be around in the future. And the fact that they know that it's a potential that they could not be in the future, and they work so hard to stay relevant and improve each and every day. It's the team. It's
Mhm.
100% the team. So
Yeah.
Spirit brought me the Solana blockchain, but then the research supported why Spirit brought me the blockchain.
I love that you use both research and your intuition on that because that's so important. And that's one of the things that I kind of try to educate my audience personally is use your own intuition. Take the information that you have in front of you, do your own research, and then use your intuition. Let it guide you because usually it's going to be
For
right.
sure. For sure. For sure. And I think it's something to be said about it, the team. Um, yeah, fair.
Okay, great. So, one of the things that I did recently was after you and I had a private conversation about Anatoly
Yep.
Yakovenko, and I hope I said that correctly. I did a spread on his career moving
Yeah.
forward. And I mean, I saw him making a ridiculous amount of money. Okay.
Right.
But there is a little bump in the road where there is some kind of partnership or project or something on that blockchain where maybe things need to be a little bit more clarified on his end or in writing with somebody, because there might be a point where he kind of feels like, oh, I kind of got screwed a little bit in this transaction. But overall, I mean, here's the thing: there's bumps in the road every which way we go in life, right? That doesn't mean that you're going to fail. I see him hitting a huge amount of success. And it's going to really start this year, I personally believe. I have a prediction of about $700 for the price of Solana by the end of 2026. And I know that sounds a little bit nuts from where we're at right now, but they are tokenizing the stock market and they're using the Solana blockchain to do it. Not
Yes.
the entire stock market, but a portion of it. Some of it's going to go on Ethereum too. And there's a few others that they've been playing around with. I'm not exactly sure how everything's going to land, but Solana's going to be a big player in that. So
Yeah. Well, it'll be exciting to kind of sit back and watch. It's one thing to build a blockchain, but it's another thing to have the capital that will fund the blockchain, that will support the blockchain, right? And then you have to think, how fast is AI coming at us?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have robots that are going to be purchasing. I mean, you've already got OpenClaw that people are using OpenClaw in order to start their business and let those little AI bots run their business. Who needs the blockchain, right? Those robots that are talking to each other, conducting business without human beings in it. So blockchain is whoever is out there right now, I feel like has the best chance to meet the future at the lightning bolt that the future is coming to us, right? And it's all got to be done on the blockchain. Like they're really like I remember one time I took a mediumship course I took the course in Dundee, Scotland. So I had to go to my bank, Navy Federal Credit Union, and went to my bank and I transferred that money to Switzerland because that's where he was living. The medium was living in Switzerland, but then the class had to go from Switzerland to Dundee, Scotland. And it took like 2 weeks for that to happen. It took two
Yeah.
weeks. And a
Yeah.
whole, like, I think I paid like $500 to make that transfer from bank to bank to bank, from currency to currency to currency. But the blockchain, it's done immediately within seconds. And so now what does that do on a global level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then, I mean, we could start to go in different directions with that. Like when that blockchain opens up, those rails for payment open up, what all is that going to affect, right? We just talked about AI. So AI is going to be affected because now AI can do commerce with other AI. But what about people in third world countries that want to then start doing business with the United States or with Canada? But money's got to be transferred and they can't transfer it in their rand. They've got
Mm-hmm.
to, because it just doesn't make sense to do that, right? It makes sense. You're going to put it into your Bitcoin. You're going to put it into a token that is then going to move at lightning speed up to
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland or over to the United States. So now, so it's to me, the way I see it from spirit is it looks like a snowball that's like this big at the top of the hill, and you've got the rails, and the
Mm-hmm.
blockchain is the rails that goes from point A to point B. And then you've got this need, and it goes rolls right down that rail all the way to the bottom, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, how many more blockchains are going to come onto the scene? They're going to give it a go, right? If they don't already have the software in place, if they don't already have the capital, if they don't have the developers, right? Where are you getting developers? You can start a new blockchain
Yeah.
tomorrow. If you don't have capital and you don't have developers, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell to
Well,
compete with what's going on.
and then you also have to actually have people using your blockchain too. I mean, you can
Right.
have capital, you can have the developers, but if you don't like have the proper, like, to me, and the marketing person in me is like, get more marketing going, you got to get the projects on your blockchain. You got to
For
get,
sure.
the people running apps. You got to get the people running those projects to actually use your blockchain and to choose your blockchain. Otherwise, it's useless if nobody uses it. You can have all the capital you want, all the developers you want, but you need to have the customers, right?
Great.
So,
So first mover advantage here,
mhm.
right? And so that's so Solana is a favorite
Okay,
for me.
good. I love it. I love Salana. That's one of the ones that I've been telling people to buy, and I've been pushing that a little bit more recently, especially with the stock market being tokenized on the Solana
And
blockchain.
what
I
a
mean,
great time. What
oh
a great
yeah,
time to buy because everything is down and it's so undervalued. Like
yes,
a small investment now will yield a big return, going forward in the future. I'm sorry, bear markets are where you make your purchases, right? That's where you set up to run big in a bull market. And so
hmm,
for your listeners out there, like it's a good buying opportunity for sure. Will it go another 10 or $15? Well, I don't know the answer to that. What I would say, and I'm just like that's against the scope of the whole market, right? With the uh, war that we've got going on right now in Iran and how all that's going to settle down. Everything is down right now. So will it go down a little bit? I think what I always think in my mind, if it goes down 20 or $30, right? Dollar cost average in a little bit, a little bit, a little.
hmm. Right. So going back to what we were saying before we got cut off, I think you were talking about dollar cost averaging in, and which is something that I think is so vital, because then that way, like if you take, like, let's just say you take $1,000, just to give it a round number, and you throw it all into crypto and you do it all at once and you don't add anything more, you're going to be so emotionally invested in that $1,000 that you just invested, right? But if you dollar cost average it, and let's say instead you throw in $50 a week, right? You're buying at all different prices. So you're not so invested in one price. And if it goes down, you're also getting the advantage of the lower cost too. So I always try to
Right.
recommend to people to dollar cost average it. And I think it's great advice. I really do.
Well, I never looked at it like that from that emotional perspective, but you
Mm-hmm.
sure are right because I have done that before and I have, I'll tell you, there was a point in time when Solana ran up and it went up over 200. It went down to 8 and it ran up over 200 and it started to fall back down. And I was like, I cannot watch this go all the way
Yeah.
back down. Like I just couldn't, but it was the hardest thing I did to
Mm-hmm.
sell out of it. I think I sold out of it at like 170, but it was the hardest thing I did because I was emotionally invested. But the beautiful thing is that it taught me that you can make money when something goes up and when it comes down. You can make money both ways, right? Because when it
Yep.
goes down, you can sell out of it, let it go down, and then make a re-entry, or
Mm-hmm.
pivot into something different for a period of time and maybe let that go up or let it hold its value and then purchase back into it. But I will tell you, it was very difficult. Like I was like, I named my dog after this blockchain. Like
Yeah.
it's my first baby, and I
Mm-hmm.
just offed with it, and it
Mm-hmm.
was so difficult. I was so happy when I was able to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but that's a good point that you make to your listeners because you cannot be emotional about this investing game that we're playing. This is still the Wild West. We don't know what's going to pan out. We can make good decisions based on information we have today, but tomorrow some kid in a garage could create some software that just changes the whole scope of everything.
Yes.
And then what? You can't like remember the film, the GameStop film,
Mm-hmm.
where woman follows it all the way up and all the way down. Like definitely you got to learn. You
Mm-hmm.
have to learn from what other people are doing. And that emotional investment can really, it can hem you up. So you do have to be careful of that for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. And one of the things that I tell people too, and we haven't had a bull run since November of 2021, but back then, and I was a newer investor at the time,
Mhm.
I had a couple $1,000s worth of Shiba Inu, nothing big, just
Oh
whatever. It
yeah,
was
I
like
remember
maybe like two or
Shiba.
$3,000, and I woke up one morning and it was worth like 9 grand. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to buy more, stupidly,
Yeah,
right? So,
I
of
know.
course, this was me, in early stages. I'm grateful for the lesson.
Yes.
But so I started buying more, right? And then of course it tanked and tanked and tanked. And it's never recovered since. So I think it's important to, when things spike up very quickly, to
Mhm.
take some profits for yourself. Like even if that's like, let's say you convert 25% of that crypto into a stable coin, and then you wait a week because it'll go down again, right? Because when it spikes up really fast, it goes down really fast too. So
Right.
it's important to make the right moves and understand the crypto market as it is right now, because it is not the same as the stock market.
Right. Agreed. Right. Agreed. I mean, both right now actually are struggling. And I'm surprised at how well Bitcoin, which I consider Bitcoin like the big daddy of it, of them all, right? Of all of crypto world, like in my mind, that's in fact, Solana was my first entry personally, but Bitcoin was my first entry just simply because I had done a reading for someone. Somebody came to see me, a woman came to see me, and her husband had passed away. And he was trying to tell her about these keys, about how she needed to sell all of the investments. And she said, yeah, my husband and I did talk about that before he had cancer. So they had time to talk about it. And she knew that she was supposed to sell everything. And so, but what she didn't understand is how Bitcoin worked and that there were keys. And he would say to me, tell her that the keys are underneath the desk, like taped, like underneath the
Mhm.
desk. And she's a woman in her 70s, so she's reaching around and there's no keys. Like she doesn't feel any keys. And
Yeah,
she's like,
right.
Cinnamon, there are no keys.
Yeah.
And he said to me, After that session, he said, look, you need to do some research because you're not communicating effectively for me to my wife. And this is all going to get taken. There was somebody trying to take because he understood and he was trying to get those keys from her.
Mm-hmm.
And in her mind, she's like, I'm not giving away any keys, but she didn't understand. And so mysteriously, I started waking up that in the middle of the night, and I just kind of intuitively from spirit world knew. And I went into my den and just kind of put on YouTube, which I was never a YouTube person back then. Didn't even
Mm-hmm.
really like I knew what it was, but I didn't really know how to use it. And you're kind of in that world because you're sleeping and you're in this world, and it's like turn to this and turn to that. And one thing just led to another. And I went down by accident the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And when I understood it, because I understand business, like I understood it. And I'll tell you the fun story is that the next time she came to me for the session, I was able to communicate clearly and effectively because what he was telling her is sell out of the Bitcoin and buy into MicroStrategy.
Mm.
And it was funny because she said to me, she leaned in and she said, well, did you buy MicroStrategy? And I was like, actually, I did not, because now I understand what Bitcoin is. And so I actually bought, just a little bit. You don't need much, like 0.01, and just hold
Mm-hmm.
on to it for a good amount of time. And actually, I think I've heard some people say if you just get zero point 0.1, just work your way to zero point 0.1 and just leave it alone, like
Mm-hmm.
that will help you have a beautiful retirement, in 10, 15, 20 years time. But nevertheless, I said to her, I said, no, I didn't. I bought Bitcoin. But then the way she looked at me like you're telling me to make this investment and you didn't do it, like, are you like how fraudulent? I mean, that's how
Mm.
I did go back and I made a very small purchase of MicroStrategy because I got to put my money where my mouth is.
Right.
And I forgot about it. I just completely forgot about it. And then a couple of years later, Tesla was at $100 a share, which is an extreme fire sale. And I
Mm-hmm.
was looking through all of my accounts, trying to find some money, anything I could sell. And I looked in that account and there was a sizable amount. And I was like, how about that? So,
Nice.
so that I left it alone. I probably should have sold it and bought Tesla with it, but you know, 'cause- but I did it. I left it. I left it
Well, there's
here
there's always those trades that we look back on like, oh, I wish I would have done that. It's impossible to make perfect trades every single time,
for
right?
sure.
As long as you're making trades and over time you're gaining some wealth, you're good, right? Don't
Yes.
don't overthink anything. That's what I tell people.
I think that no truer words are spoken because the better you get at investing, there will come a point in time where you're like in the beginning, you just want to make a little bit of money. Then you make a little bit of money and you're like, that was a great investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you make a little bit of money. Like you said, you take your 30% off the top and maybe you take your family on, a trip to go see the redwoods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you take a little bit of money at 30% off the top and maybe you go use that as a down payment to buy the new family car, right? And that feels good and you can see your success. But the kind of the more you keep doing it, you've got to watch the mind because the mind is a human mind and it says, but I could have made more if I would have invested in this instead of this. And
Yeah.
you just have to remember, like, that's not what we're doing here, right? That's
Yeah.
not what we're doing. And be smart about things.
Yeah. I just tell people do the best you possibly can
That's right.
and, give it to the universe, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So long term Bitcoin, do you think it could hit $1 million a coin?
There, there is no doubt in my mind that it will hit $1 million. I'm projecting within the next 20 years, it'll actually be at 10 million.
Wow.
And this is the
Okay.
thing. And this is the thing, is that the reason why I believe that, well, there's a couple different reasons. One, it's just what Bitcoin is. It is
Hmm.
unhackable, right? You cannot hack it. I mean, we don't have quantum computers yet. So just take that conversation off the table. When that comes, we can revisit this conversation. But for now, it is the safest, right? And you have to think of it like this. So I am nowhere near multi-million billion dollar status. Like I'm not even in that category at all, right? But I can imagine what it feels like to be that kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that your number one job, when you're in the millionaire, billionaire club, your number one job is to preserve the wealth that you have. Because every country, every sovereignty wants to put their hand in your pocket and take your money, right? I mean, in the form of taxes. They all want to
Mm-hmm.
do that. So how do you preserve the value of your money? You put it into a very hard asset that goes up over time. What makes Bitcoin so hard? It is limited. The supply,
Mm-hmm.
simple economics, supply and demand, it is limited. My actual prediction, the thing that I feel inside when I get my hit, when I get my intuition from the spirit world, is that with the next halving, that's when, we thought we were going to feel this supply crunch with the last halving, but we really weren't there yet. I think it was like the first wave was really expecting that last halving to hit and supply and demand would come onto the scene, and lots of people that have the means that could buy a whole coin would just jump in and buy it. Well, that didn't happen because we're
Mm-hmm.
too early yet. I think we're at like
Yeah.
3% adoption rate still, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe by the next halving, that's when it's going to get crazy. That's when I believe it's going to get crazy, because you have to think like now, so where do all the millionaires and billionaires go to, right? They all go to Dubai. Why do they go to Dubai? Because Dubai doesn't try to take all their money. They have all the oil money, so they don't overtax their people. So they go stay in Dubai. Well, what's going on in Dubai right now? Iran is throwing drones over there. Iran is blowing up their airstrips. So what are they doing? They're like, I'm out of here. In fact, I just read a report that real estate is down by 60% in Dubai, which
Wow.
means if you're a millionaire or billionaire and you buy real estate in Dubai, it's gone. It's
Yeah.
gone because you had to leave. So that's not a hard asset, right? We think real estate is a hard asset. Well, that's not true for Dubai, right? What about gold? Okay, so let's say that they've got gold stashed in their safe in Dubai, right? Because they're in some, I'm just imagining, I don't know this to be
Mm-hmm.
true, but let's just say they've got gold. They're in some real secure, tight, 150-story building that nobody can get into. So they actually store blocks of gold in their safe in their apartment. Well, how the heck? Now they got to get on a plane and get out of here because the place is being bombed. How many stacks of gold do you think that they could put in a bag and carry out without the
Yeah.
bag, with them being strong enough? So those are the two hardest assets other than Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Right
Yeah.
now, what that whole experience just said is the hardest asset on the planet is Bitcoin, because it's digital, because you can literally get up with the seed phrase, the keys in your mind, get up and go to another country. And
Mm-hmm.
you've got all your money that's completely safe.
Right.
And so because of that, I think as that awareness comes to all the people in those clubs, the millionaires, the billionaires, I think that they're going to start putting their money. And then, of course, you're just going to have the state that's going on right now with the economy, not just in the United States, but globally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is getting ready to just like dominoes collapse. So what are you going to do with your money? Where are you going to put your money so that it doesn't get taxed to the high heaven? Well, you're going
Yeah.
to put it in some kind of cold storage wallet with a seed phrase, and you're just going to go wherever you feel safest, that they're not going to rob you of all of your life's earnings. And when that
Yeah.
happens, now, and then you've got the next halving that comes right now. Now the crunch comes. And I think that jump, I think it's going to be slower. So we're like in the 60s right now. I'm fairly certain by the end of the year, we'll be somewhere, maybe by November, December, maybe 120, 130. And then I think, maybe slow, gradual. But when is our next halving? It's in 2028. Is that correct? Have I got that right?
I'm not sure
Yeah,
offhand.
I think it is in 2028. So by then, now you've got a new election, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
coincides with the election.
Mm-hmm.
And then God forbid there's a potential in the United States to get a new cabinet in that is not supportive of AI and crypto technology. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then now people are really going to be flooding their money into it. And I think at that point, I think it's going to go faster from 250 to 750 than it's gone. Like that'll be the
Mm-hmm.
biggest jump within a couple of years.
That's an interesting perspective. It really is. So I just kind of looked up the halving schedule for Bitcoin, and it looks like it's April of 2028. So that's really exciting. See, I thought we'd be a little bit farther along with Bitcoin by the end of
Yeah.
2026, but
I
um,
think I think we all did. Yeah.
yeah, everything's moving so slow. I'm like, man, I get all these messages, and I'm getting like, all these high numbers, and it just hasn't manifested yet. I know it's only a matter of time, and maybe I'm being a little
I
impatient
think
because, you know,
I think a lot of people jumped. So again, like those of us that just play with this because, because we need a down payment for a car or because, we're trying to bolster up our retirement account, like, that just play with it kind of where we can in the way that we can. I don't think if you put all of us together, we could make enough of a difference in the market. But
yeah.
I can promise you the millionaires and billionaires, the hedge fund like the Larry Finks and the Jamie Dimons of the world. Now they have the potential to really shake, rattle, and roll. And if you notice, both those people I just mentioned, which is Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon, now they're hedge fund owner, and Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio for the longest time was on the Warren Buffett kick that said, oh, this is rat poison, right? Well, it's only rat poison because it's how is government going to get tax, how they're going to get their tax money.
Mhm.
If everybody goes into Bitcoin and that becomes, if that backs the currency, how are you going to make sure you're getting, your tax money? But now everybody's on the bandwagon. All three
Mhm.
of those things, Ray Dalio, Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink. But it takes time in those institutions to move that kind of money, right? They've got
Yeah.
to put them in ETFs that just not this January, but last January, it just got approved to where you could have a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Well, and one of the things that Trump ran on was taking away the capital gains tax on crypto, U.S. based cryptos. So, and that hasn't been implemented into law yet. It's kind of been pushed aside. There's a lot of political drama in this world, but I
Mhm.
do still feel like before the end of his term, that will get passed into law. And if that is actually implemented, that's a game changer for
For
everybody.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
I mean, we're all going to have to be thinking about our retirement funds, which I don't know. I don't know if you want to touch on this about if you're like, how are your new investors? How are like if they're listening to this podcast and they want to start investing, like how do they do it? Like how do you recommend that? Like where did
So, like with crypto, I usually just recommend them opening up a Coinbase account. Robinhood's okay too. I'm not a big Robinhood person just because they're very limited with the amount of crypto that they offer, but there's no trading fees. So that's great. But I usually just kind of go with Coinbase just because it's an easy app to use. And there's a large variety of cryptos to choose from. So, and the fees are generally pretty low. You can pay $30 a month, and then you have no trading fees, and then your account's insured up to $10,000. So that's always a plus too. But
Nice.
um, yeah, I just kind of say start a Coinbase account. But I mean, they have made it now where you can put it in your 401k. So some of the trading companies do have different crypto options, but it's very limited. It's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. And listen, those are good coins. But I also like doing a little bit more of the riskier stuff because that's where you're going to make insane amounts of money. That's where you could literally create wealth for your family on a very, very small amount of money if you leave it in there over time. Like Algorand, that's one of my favorites. I do think that they are going to have some massive gains over the course of the next few years. Right now, things are really, 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 really slow, but I know that will change in time. And so, if you could buy something at 9 cents a coin and it turns into $5 or $11, I mean,
Beautiful.
that's golden. It's gravy.
Right.
It's gravy. I mean, I had a
Absolutely.
friend who bought Shiba Inu in the very beginning stages. She bought $20 worth and sold it for $8,000. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So,
Yeah, I don't more so what I would say to someone who is just thinking, oh, maybe they want to take advantage of the world as it's coming to us and they haven't made investments. I would absolutely start with a Roth IRA account. And it's the easiest thing to open. And then to speak to your point about all these different cryptocurrencies, right? An iTrust Capital account.
okay.
Absolutely. That's what I would do is I would open up an iTrust Capital account. So this actually just happened to me just recently. So I'll share the story. So I had wanted to make an investment in SUI,
Mhm.
SUI, the blockchain that's just kind of recently come on the scene. And but the problem is that I wanted it for the long term, right? I wanted to make a small investment and I wanted it for the long term. And so, because I'm a woman of a certain age, it's not going to be too long until I'm 59 and a half, right? So if you open up a Roth IRA, the trade-off is that you can make investments, but you cannot pull it out until you're 59 and a half. It is my understanding, although you'd have to check just to make sure this is true, that you could borrow against your Roth IRA if you
Mhm.
needed to. Like if you got a sizable amount of money in that account and you wanted to buy a house and you needed to borrow like down payment money and you wanted and you had and it grew, you could do that. But you want to check and make sure that for sure is true because I've never had that experience. I've just kind of heard that you could do that, but even
Mhm.
just take that off the table. So if you can parlay, right? If you can get that zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, you're allowed $7,500 up to a certain age. And then my age range is 86, I believe, $8,600 a
Mhm.
year that you can put in to a Roth IRA account without and let it grow. And when you pull the money out, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So you just have to really consider that because now what's going to happen? Like you're talking about the Shiba Inu. I'm talking about the Sui. Like you could go buy Sui. So that's what I wanted to do. So this is the conundrum I was in. So I do have a Robinhood, just regular account. But I said, oh, I think I'm crafty, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to open up a Roth IRA in Robinhood, which you can do that. So that's what I did. And then I went to go put a couple $100s because you have all year, right? All year you could put a little bit of money, put a little money. It just caps out at 8,600. So I want to go and I want to put a couple $100s into this Roth IRA account. And I'm thinking that's going to be great because Sui's at like $1 a share.
Mhm.
Guess what? They don't take Sui on
Yeah.
Robinhood. So I opened up that Roth account and now the money, now I did send the $200 there, right? Because I'm so excited. I sent the 200 and then I'm scrolling and I'm looking for Sui and they don't offer Sui. But now that $200 is stuck in that Roth because if I try to take it out, I'm going to pay a prepayment penalty. So what I did is I went and I looked at iTrust Capital to make sure. So this is please learn from my mistake. If you want to make an investment in something, figure out first what platform you're going to purchase it on and make all of those concessions first and then second, fund it. Don't do like I did and put the $200 in there because then what I had to do is I had to fill out all this paperwork and it took like 2 weeks and it had to go transfer from Robinhood Roth IRA in my name to I Trust Capital Roth IRA account, which it was great for me because actually Sui went down and to like 92 cents in the meantime. And that was a God nod. So I was super grateful for
God
that.
nod.
Instead of paying 99 cents for it, I paid 92 cents. And I think today you can pick it up with 88. But the point being the same, if you're a young person and you're making these investments because you are trying to save up for that wedding or you're trying to save up for that down payment of the car or you're wanting to pay some kind of tuition or education that you're going to have to pull it out, well then you're probably not going to want to put it in a Roth IRA because that is going to be reserved for you for later on down the timeline. And the benefit to doing something, so maybe in your Roth IRA you want to start to work towards a zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in your Roth IRA. So just a little bit, dollar cost average in. And then the beauty of it is in that Roth IRA, I mean, that's kind of a whole different conversation. Like, how do you make money in a bull market and how do you make money in a bear market? But just to kind of finish all that up, it's like, be mindful because if you make your investments on Coinbase, on Robinhood, on Binance, when you do sell it, it will incur a tax event. You will have to pay taxes on it because that's the law.
Mhm.
And you don't want to not abide by the law, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're just going to be mindful of what you're investing in, what your long-term goals are, and my recommendation would be to do like what you're saying is, I don't know if Doge and Shiba Inu. I don't know if they're on iTrust Capital, but I'm gonna guess they've got a lot of crypto on there.
I don't recommend Shiba anymore. I really don't. If you hold
Okay.
Shiba, I recommend people. I actually converted like 75% of my Shiba into other layer one blockchains because,
Oh, nice.
meme coins are, as fun as they are. And I know that they can shoot up really quickly and people can make a lot of money on them. There's no substance behind them.
Right.
The Dogecoin, Elon, talks about that quite a bit just because he tweets about it here and there. There that would probably be one I'd be like, okay, it's okay to have a little bit in your portfolio. I don't go heavy on it though.
Right.
I tell people to stick with the layer one blockchains and the AI coins because AI has not even begun to adapt on the blockchain.
Sure.
And speaking of AI, have you ever heard of BitTensor?
No, I sure have not.
Okay, so it's the number one AI crypto in terms of market cap. So the NVIDIA CEO came out recently and said that AI, decentralized AI on the blockchain, hasn't even begun to adapt yet. But it kind of and I can't quote him verbatim. I don't remember the exact phrase that he used, but he was basically saying good things about decentralized AI and how it's going to be big in the future. And
Sure.
BitTensor went up $100 a coin right
Wow.
after that. And they have the same supply amount as Bitcoin. And I love that because we're talking 21 million coins. Most of these other cryptos, they have billions of coins, like XRP is at 100 billion coins. And there are people out there that are like, oh, well, XRP is going to be bigger than Bitcoin and XRP is going to be worth $10,000 a coin. And I'm like, that's like impossible from where it's at right now because the supply is too big and they don't understand that the supply of these coins are different for every single coin. And so that's kind of one of the things that I personally battle with trying to educate people on crypto is you really have to look at the supply of each coin.
Mhm.
you know
See, and I think when you talk about XRP, and I know that XRP has a big army, and I get that. I used to be a part of the XRP army. Um, But back in the beginning, they had first mover advantage with what they were doing. But then, exactly what the fear always is, which is why, as an investor, you always have to be paying attention. What is the next best and greatest thing? XRP put their rails from bank to bank to bank. So, like when I gave you that example of sending money from Virginia to Switzerland, from Switzerland to Dundee through the banking portal, through the banking system, that's basically what it would be for XRP. So you're still paying the cost. It might be moving a little bit faster. I mean, maybe the cost went down a little bit, but that in the beginning, that was like the glory, right? That was
mhm.
like the best thing. But since then, it's changed. New technology has come on the scene. There's a better, faster, different way to do things. And that it goes back to our initial conversation. You have to don't get overly emotionally invested. Like to me, my emotional investment is in making money. That's
Mine
what it
too. Yeah, no, for
that's
sure,
it's
for
like
sure.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. I mean, I
hmm
do try, like I do listen to spirit. They guide me to projects that are good. I go to that project, I do my research on it, but I'm always listening for what else is going on in the world. I'm not,
hmm
like I told you, I sold out of that Solana position because I didn't want to watch it go back down to $80 where it is today. So
Yeah.
I sold out of it. Right. And that because my ultimate thesis is I would like to make some money. My husband and I, we had 4 children and we took care of them and we were self-employed. So we didn't do anything for our retirement. And we
hmm
don't have anything set aside as self-employed people for our retirement. And so in my mind, I would like to see if we could somehow get something put together so that
hmm
when we don't have the energy that we once had, that there's a little bit something there to help us that's not just from the government.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And so because
absolutely.
that
That's
is
smart.
this, so that's my thesis. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I mean, you can't depend on the government for anything these days. And so many people live off the government. And I know I've known some people that have done that and I'm like, and they're struggling. I'm like, why did you put yourself in a position where you're living off the government?
Yeah.
Like you could still change that. They just don't. And I'm like,
I'll tell you, because I
I
didn't
can't do
know
that.
any better,
I
Marissa. I
know.
didn't know until I
Ugh.
knew. And
Yeah,
then when I
yeah,
knew, then I'm like, I'm so happy. I want to be on your podcast. I like want to talk to people about it so that they all understand.
yeah.
Because I didn't understand, I just didn't know what I didn't know until I knew it.
hmm
And yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about Tesla for a minute. I know you love the Tesla stock and SpaceX just applied for an IPO. So tell me what you see in regards to that.
I think if you're lucky enough, so if you're lucky enough to get some shares of SpaceX, I think you're doggone lucky, right?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. I'm pretty sure you could apply for an IPO. Like there was an IPO that I applied for, I think it was SSX, a while back. And like, how many shares do you want? Like, let's just say it was 100. I don't remember how many shares it was. And so I applied for it. And I think they gave me 10. I'm like, what am I going to do with 10? So
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to get into the IPO, if you're really serious about, you cannot get this any longer on SpaceX, but I know HIIVE is a way if you want to invest. It's riskier, right? That's where you go if you more like capital adventure, a capital investor, a venture capitalist investor. That's kind of where you would go. I'm pretty sure you get the SpaceX there, but look at that, so far beyond my scope of things. I am a Tesla girl through and through. I only own a very small share of it right now because again, I go into that IRA account and I swap back and forth because there's no tax increment buying and selling
Hmm.
in your Roth IRA account. So I go back and forth between Bitcoin and Tesla and Bitcoin and Tesla. And right now, I feel like Bitcoin has a better chance of doubling quicker
Yeah.
than Tesla. And so I'm out of my Tesla position. I sold out of that when it was 440 and now it's in the three somethings and now it's in Bitcoin. And so we'll just wait and we'll let Bitcoin run up. And that's what I do in the Roth IRA account. So that's a little tip for everyone. But as it pertains to SpaceX, um, Tesla owns SpaceX, so I don't have to worry about trying to get my hands on it. There are people with way more money and way more intellect that are probably going to get a first shot at owning shares of SpaceX. It's probably not going to be me, but I'm okay with it because I'm pretty sure that Elon can get as much SpaceX as he wants in his Tesla account. And if I own Tesla, that is my exposure, and I'm okay with it.
Okay. I like that. I like that. One of the things that I was thinking about, because gas prices are starting to rise now because of this conflict with Iran, which I actually think is temporary. But let's say this, extends a little bit longer than maybe anticipated. Do you think that more people are going to turn to buying Teslas just because they're electric? Okay, so before our internet cut out, because internet's so reliable these days, I was asking Cinnamon, with this oil crisis that we're going through right now, obviously the price of gas has gone up significantly. I don't necessarily think that it's going to last too long, but let's say that it does. Do you think more people are going to turn to buy Teslas? Is this?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here.
I wasn't
I
sure
was
if we
just
paused.
taking a minute to think
Okay.
about that question, and I'll tell you why. Because, when people don't have money to do the things that they want to do, they become fearful,
Hmm.
right? The animalistic side comes out. And I think I would love the easy answer to be yes. And I would love that to be the solution for the problem, right? Which is that we don't have gas, so we're going to buy a bunch of electric vehicles. And Elon could keep up with it because he built that beautiful manufacturing plant in Austin, Texas, and that is one of the eight companies that he has underneath the umbrella of Tesla that bring money in, which is how to build a manufacturing plant. And so, where I do believe the answer is yes with that, of course, that will naturally happen. But I also think that. Look, there's a possibility for a lot of changes, right? There's a possibility that people are going to start buying his robo taxis, and they're going to start putting the robo taxis out. They're going to start taking people from place to place, and maybe people will just stop buying cars altogether because they're going to learn how to share cars. Maybe there's going to be some people that just don't want to go with change because they're already so ticked off that they don't have money to do the things they want to do, and they're just going to revolt and stick to what they know. I mean, I think the thing that I could predict is chaos. Um, the truth of the matter is, though, is that we have enough oil reserves in the United States to take care of ourselves.
Hmm.
So, do I really think that the economy in the United States is going to be affected that greatly? I think we're going to sit and suffer in it for a while, but I'm pretty sure that the administration already said that they're going to start working on the oil reserves, that we're going to open up the oil reserves. We've never done that because we've always kept them in a safe haven for a time like this.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So,
for sure.
so I
And
don't
we can
know.
also drill too. And that's one of the things Trump always says, drill, baby, drill. That's coming
Yeah, he
too.
does. He does.
So we'll just have more of that, right?
Right. But I will tell you, I think that because we're in such a chaotic time, there's a really great book written by Ray Dalio, and it's called The Changing World Order. And I would recommend to all of your listeners to listen to that book, to read that book, to go onto YouTube and type in Ray Dalio, Changing World Order, because he put this little 20-minute video that you could watch, and he basically did the research from every world power. So the Roman Empire, the Dutch Empire, and he studied all of them. And what he found is that there are markers to rise in power, holding power, and fall in power. And they're all exactly the same. And we're in the last chain of that. So we're like number 6 in the fall of power, which is the social unrest. It's like one side pitted against the other side. If people read that book and understood that this thing that we're going on, that's going on for us economically, is something that's happened with every single empire before us. We are no different than anybody else. What we're going through as Americans is no different. Even the war that we're fighting has been done so many times over to try to preserve the economy and maintain global power. And so, with all that being said, the point I'm trying to get to is the chaos. When people get into chaos and they get angry, they're going to do things like if they're on one side, they're not going to buy EVs just because they want to, stick the middle finger to the other side that they feel is not on their team. And so
Hmm.
I don't really know that that's going to happen. I really wouldn't predict that to happen in that kind of way. If anything, what I see in the future is more the other, which is that robo-taxis come on the scene, that how Dara from Uber is trying to do all these really creative things with Rivian, bidding electric vehicles on the road that are doing ride shares. And maybe it'll start to be like, you live in New York City, you just don't own a car. Maybe there'll be more
Hmm.
metropolis areas, they just don't own cars, or one person in a family will buy a car, and then that car will just kind of coordinate and drive people where they got to go, come back and take the next person, and they'll coordinate it like that. I mean, that feels a little
Interesting.
bit more realistic to me in the
Hmm.
future, just taking into consideration that things are changing at the speed of lightning.
Yeah.
And what is going to be available to us for problem solving is not going to be the way things were done in the past. So to just automatically think that electric vehicles are going to come on the scene because we don't have gas, it just doesn't look that plain and simple to me. I
Okay.
wish it was
Yeah.
because I have Tesla, but
Yeah.
I don't see it that way.
Okay. Well, no, it's interesting insight for sure. I think you're absolutely correct on that. I do. I think you're absolutely correct. I think some people are buying Tesla stock right now with anticipation that that is going to be the case in the future, and where I do think that Tesla stock is going to go up significantly. I mean, Elon's always, developing something new. So
Sure.
it's not just the cars, but people are buying Tesla right now with that anticipation. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's,
Well, that's
totally
interesting
going to
because
be.
the
Yeah.
price is not reflecting that, right?
Okay.
So supply and demand, how many people want to buy something determines the price of it. And right now, I mean, I don't know what it closed on Friday because I didn't look at it, but at some point on Friday, I thought it was around the 380s. Do you know what
It's
that was?
it's 361 today. I looked it up right before we
Wow.
got on here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what an incredible price. What an
Hmm.
incredible price. Thank God I sold out of it at 440,
Yeah.
and put it back in, switched it over, which, can lead us to the point where we can talk a little bit about, like, if you're an investor. I do want to say one thing because I think this is fair for your listeners to understand, right? The more information we have, the better decisions we can make. Right.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what we do. That's why we have the 5 physical senses, is because we pull information to us, and the more information we have, the better decisions we can make. Well, I was just at that Abundance 360 summit where some of the best, smartest minds on the planet came together. And I just want everybody out there to understand that the world is changing, and there are really smart, altruistic people out there who do have our best interests at heart, despite what we think is going on with the government, with all the infighting and
Hmm.
backstabbing and all those things. There really are really good human beings out there solving problems, and they understand that where oil is an issue. Right? They understand that the environment is an issue, and they understand that interplanetary life is an issue, and they're solving these problems because they can, because they have the
Hmm.
intellect, have the brain power, and they have the resources to solve these problems. So there's a really great book out there. It's called The Future is Faster Than You Think. Peter Diamandis and Kotler, Kotler, wrote that book together. That might be a little bit outdated, meaning I think it was written maybe 5 years ago. So some of the, if you get the audio version, they will talk about how we moved beyond, like where they thought the future was going. We already moved that fast that we moved beyond, and this is the next step
Hmm.
of where the world is evolving to. But educate yourself, people. That's what I would recommend. Right? And that book is a good start.
Interesting. I'll have to check it out.
That's good. It's
Yeah.
good. Love it.
Okay. So overall, you are Bitcoin, Solana, and Sui. Those are your top picks.
Yeah, well, my top picks are Bitcoin, Tesla,
Okay.
and Solana. Those are my three top picks. But then I'm also Microstrategy girl, because we talked about why I'm Microstrategy girl,
Hmm.
because I heard that specifically from the spirit world. I like Nvidia because it's a play for the future. It's a chip play for the future. And then I like Sui as another layer one.
Okay. All right. Good.
And I have a small bit. So when you talked about Shiba Inu, I did also own Shiba Inu at one time. That was
Hmm.
like way back when I first was getting into it. And I did buy some. If I made something, it wasn't, like a couple $100, but then I did switch it into Doge. And I
Okay.
like
That was a
I
good
would say
move.
very small sliver of it. It's like maybe a seventh of my
Yeah.
portfolio, but I don't get rid of it because I'm an Elon Musk girl.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so if he does do something with it, then, you know, I could get a new car. Maybe.
There you go.
Like he
You
does
have a
something with it, it
pretty
goes
nice
somewhere.
car as it is. I'll just say that. I've seen your car. You've got a very nice car.
Thank you. You're funny.
Yeah. So, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Is there anything else that we've missed?
Hmm. Kind of looking over my nose. My prediction with Sui is that it's going to be $12 a coin by the end of 2026. I know that sounds nuts, but I ran an extensive tarot spread on this recently, and I kind of meditated on this, and I really think that it's going to go high. The thing that sucks with Sui right now is that we're battling a bunch of token unlocks. So, and I think that's like every month.
Do you think
But
they're
it's
using that to pay? I'm sorry. Do you think they're unlocking it? Like, I don't know how that works. Are they unlocking it so that they have money to pay their developers, so that they have capital, so that they can push their project? Do you know why they
you know
unlock that? No.
what? I'm not 100% sure. I think there's four different allocations with that. So
I,
they give it to four different like sections of whatever it is they're doing it with. Maybe it is for some capital for them. That
Mhm.
is absolutely possible, but um, it decreases significantly in May. The token unlocks, the monthly unlocks, so that's good, and that's right when we get our new Fed share too. So I'm
Yes.
hoping to see a little bit of an increase in May with Sui. So that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited for him. It'll be interesting to see if Powell was as much as of a clog in the wheel as everybody made him out to be.
Mm,
Or if he was just a part of the whole evolutionary process. Because from my perspective, he caused a lot of problems and a lot of headache and heartache for progression. That
okay.
wasn't his decision. To like progression, where does progression come from? It comes from source, right? There's a reason why we're not still living in caves, because the evolution of humanity has got to kind of keep going. And so if source says, okay, now you are going to be a global economy, you have to have a way to become a global economy. If source says it's not fair that the bankers take your money, you put your money into a savings account. You don't get any money on your savings account, but yet they
Yeah.
take your money and lend it out in the form of fractional reserve. Like that can only happen for so long until that which created all of us. It's like if you have two children and one child is getting all the benefit off the other child, at some point as the parent, you're gonna be like, that's got to stop. You can't
Hmm.
do that to your brother or your sister, right? Because you love them all. And so now, so Source comes in and says, look, we're going to have this new payment rail system, and we are going to become a global economy, and we're going to let people in third world countries put their IDs and their passports and their money on the blockchain so that every time a new dictator comes into office, they don't change the monetary system in those little countries in Africa and everywhere else. That comes to a stop. So Source says that's how it's going to be. And then you got Papa Powell, that says, mm-mm. We're not going to have progression because I'm the man that says no
Yeah.
progression. So we'll see if that was him that was putting the clog in it, if he was the face for that. We're going to find out because we're getting somebody that's coming into office that's going to be supportive of the
Yes. I think that we're going to see a lot of stuff come out about Powell after he's made his
he's
exit. Yeah.
yeah.
And I cannot wait to get him out of there. I thought it was hilarious that the DOJ subpoenaed him. And
Oh,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And a judge blocked it.
did it?
Yeah, they were trying to put some legal pressure on him. They were poking him for sure because they were like,
Okay.
you're not doing the right thing by the people,
Well, the
and he's
bankers are going to be sad. The bankers are going to be sad that he's gone.
well, the banks are trying to stop the Clarity Act from passing because, and this is all over like stablecoin yield, but it's really not just over stablecoin yield. That's what they're saying. So,
Mhm.
if you let's say you have $1,000 that is sitting in your savings account, just to use a round number, and you want to earn 3% interest, you're not going to earn that in sitting in the savings account. If you throw it on the blockchain into Coinbase and you buy Tether with it, you get 3% interest. Well,
Yes.
the bank, what the bankers' problem is they don't want that. Because they're afraid that if it's in the Clarity Act that you can earn interest on your stable coins, all the money is going to come out of the banks, or a significant amount will, and then they won't have as much to lend, and then lending is going to happen pretty much solely on the blockchain, which that's going to happen anyways. But they're trying to slow that down. So they negotiated this interest rate on stable coins now, where the retail investor cannot earn interest on stable coins, but the institutions can. Like them.
Unbelievable.
I know, right? Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I know. But that's what's holding up the Clarity Act. And I feel like there's a lot of projects that are going to go on the blockchain. They're waiting for that Clarity Act to be passed. And so I think we're going to see a significant rise in the market when the Clarity Act passes. And then, of course, there'll be a pullback after that because we're on this big roller coaster. The foundation is still the cement's trying to dry right now. It's not quite dried yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And so it's just a matter of time at this point. The banks are losing control, which is the good news.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Blockbuster at some point was pounding their feet up and down and stomping their fists, stomping their feet and pounding their piss feet, on the ground because they
Mm-hmm.
knew that they were going to be obsolete. And,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's just what it is, isn't it?
Yep.
Everybody's got their time where they rise and they fall. And the banks for a long time which is so ironic because I see the United States as the world's bank, right? Like that's how we make our money as a nation is because our currency is the most powerful. And so we lend it out to other countries, right? That's what the bonds are. That's what the T-bills are. That's how we survive in this global economy, but we're losing that too, which is why we're trying to build all this AI infrastructure so that we
Mm-hmm.
have a product to sell. We have data centers, we have chips. We're trying to meet the future as it's coming to us in a way that we now have some kind of product that's valuable in the world because right now we don't. And
Yeah.
when our currency, because it's no longer backed by gold, what is it going to be backed by? They're already trying
Yeah.
to, right? Other banks are popping up, other
Yeah.
current are
Kind of
pop.
makes you wonder what's going on at Fort Knox. Maybe they should turn it into like a homeless shelter if no gold is there. At least then it'll have some kind of use for the public, right?
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, that's very funny. Well, the word that I hear is that they're my like I don't know how much of this is true. I would like to think that they're going to, I think on our books, we're showing gold at like $40 an ounce or something. And as soon as that gets restructured to current value of gold, then it's like we have so much more money. Well, then I don't quite know how putting that all into the economy works, but it would be nice to think that perhaps the United States government, like so many states, are purchasing Bitcoin to back their states. Hopefully, we're doing the same thing just behind the scenes.
That would be nice.
It
Well, I
would
know
be
that there's a Bitcoin reserve. And there's going to come a point too, and I'm not sure if this has been implemented or not, but you'll be able to pay your income taxes with Bitcoin. And when
yeah, I
you
bet.
do that, it goes into the reserve. It doesn't get put into all these government programs that are BS, right? All this fraudulent stuff that we're funding. And
Mhm.
it can create some wealth for the government, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's kind of what I've read on. I don't know if that's been implemented quite yet, though.
Well, the thing is, you have to remember right now, Bitcoin is down,
Yeah.
right? But if you look at it over time, it is up. Like when
Oh,
I
yeah.
first started looking at Bitcoin, it was the top was $30,000 a coin, right? We got all the way up to 120. Did it make a big pullback down to 60,000? Might it go back down to 50? Yeah, it might, but now that's going to be a new bottom, right? That's the new high low, right? That or the low low. Like that is the
Mhm.
new, right? Before maybe instead of 30, it was like 7,500. I don't know what the numbers are, and I'm not looking at them right now, but you get the point of it, right? It's like this is the low, this is the low, this is the low, and you have to look at it over an overarching theme. But the reality is the more Bitcoin becomes accepted, the less volatile it becomes. All
Yes.
stocks function the same way. So would that be great for the government to get paid in Bitcoin? Sure, because if they're not spending it, it's just sitting in an account. I mean, look at Bukele out of El Salvador. Smartest man on the planet. He totally turned El Salvador around by purchasing Bitcoin. He runs his whole country off Bitcoin. Like brilliant, because he could
Hmm.
see the future as it was coming to us, and he embraced it and then made practical application. And now this country is completely turned around. So
Yeah.
hopefully we don't have enough of infighting. Like there's so much infighting. Like I just always think of kids. Like so I feel
Yeah.
like right, always fighting, always chaos. And so you can't
Hmm.
see the forest for the trees. You can't really get a good plan going forward because there's just so much fighting among the people. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully that's going on behind the scenes. That would be a beautiful surprise. Maybe we'd be the first country that would not lose our world domination between AI and digital assets. Potentially, I don't know. China is a country to be contended with. They're smart and they've been
Yeah.
working on a plan for a long time. They're
Yeah. No, for sure.
yeah. So we'll see.
One of the things that I tell people, and when I go to these body, mind, spirit celebration expos and I give my lecture, I tell people to turn off their TV, stop watching the news, stop being so invested in what's going on politically, because it doesn't matter what channel you listen to, right or left, you're not getting the full scope of what's really happening behind the scenes. So, and it's something that you can't control. And people just get so mad, and they get mad at their relatives and their friends when they don't have the same belief system. And I'm like, you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. Just because you watch the news doesn't mean that you have the correct facts, right?
Mhm.
So don't allow it to divide you between friends and
Absolutely.
family, that and don't be upset about things you can't control. You're not the one making these decisions. You don't decide solely who's elected into office. So if you can't control it, why are you going to get upset about it? You know what I
Right.
mean? So because we're only going to experience more chaos.
That's
This is
so
a year
true.
of like straight up chaos. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I tell people. You want to raise your vibration, turn off your TVs, or if you're going to watch something, watch the Gaia channel.
Yeah,
Watch
that's a good one. That
yeah.
is a good one.
Hmm.
And I think to speak to your point, if you know what you think, you know what you believe, then you can hold that thought in your mind and you
Hmm.
can listen to what somebody else thinks, what somebody else believes, how they get to their way of thinking, and you can hold that in your mind. You can hold two different opposing opinions in your mind because you know how you think.
Hmm.
So who cares? You don't have to tell the other person how you think, but you can
Right.
get curious about what they think and why. And the only thing that that's going to do for you is gonna, well, one, it's gonna keep your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
connected, but it's also gonna make you a better, smarter person because
Right.
maybe there is a little something in what they're saying that
Mm-hmm.
you can take in and add to what your thinking is, that then is maybe a key that unlocks the whole reframing. It doesn't mean you're gonna think like them all the way, but I'm sure they're gonna have some good points in it. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that you don't have to fight with the people that you love because you have differing opinions. You can just say, wow, that's fascinating. I'm just so curious why you think that way. And then really hear them and really try to understand what they think and why. It just makes you more knowledgeable about human beings, about thought processes. And that I feel like is perhaps a better way to be in the world than to just say, this is what I think, blah, 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 I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Some people just can't handle it though. I've noticed there's just an increase in anger. And even when I give readings and somebody like if I'm at an expo, somebody comes and sits down at my booth and they start talking to me about politics, I just listen to them. I don't say anything one way or the other. And then I try to kind of change the subject or say something that like diffuses their anger and gives them a little bit of comfort because like that's a terrible way to live and walk through the world. I'm angry at all this political stuff and this is going to consume me. It's like you need to work on self-improvement. You need to work on putting out some good energy into the world and doing what you can to the best of your ability to make the world a better place.
yeah, for sure. And having respect that we are all God's children. And if
Mm-hmm.
God created you and God created me, and God created this other person and that other person, and we all have different opinions, it all comes from the same root. It all comes from the same source,
Yeah.
right? We're all a part of the whole. And yeah, and maybe respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where the respect comes in. And I
Yeah.
think that's good stuff. I'm just thinking about a client that there is one in particular, and she does a lot of protesting, especially with the new administration.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that you can see, at least for myself, in a mediumship session, it's very clear from spirit's perspective that she is in alignment with her purpose. She is in alignment with how her creator created her, and she is glorifying that part of source by being exactly as she was created to be. And so, how could you have anything other than respect and admiration for that, even
Mm-hmm.
if you think something completely different,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know? So,
absolutely.
and that's spirit's perspective of it all. And if the goal is to bring more spirit into human world, then those attributes of kindness, forgiveness, patience, understanding, respect, thoughtfulness, all those good attributes that belong in the spirit world, the more we bring those into human world, the more we neutralize those human attributes that we're trying to overcome, like anger and jealousy and fear and, unkindness, right? All those things that we're trying to kind of overcome, right? That's the purpose of being here, giving love and receiving love. And
Mm-hmm. For
I think it
sure.
becomes a better place for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, this was a great talk, Cinnamon. Thank you so
So
much
fun.
for joining me. I never get enough time with you. Whenever we're at the expo, Cinnamon has like a line out the door waiting to get in to see her. So I'm lucky if I get to talk to her like for a few minutes before the show starts, but normally she's like flying in at the last minute, right? So are you going to Cincinnati?
I don't have plans because that's the 12th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the 12th? I
Yeah.
don't have plans. I don't have plans. I'm
Okay.
working on I'm trying to get my open claw put together, my AI assistant, and that's kind of take that and then the readings at home that I'm
Yeah.
catching up,
Yeah. No, for
came
sure.
up with
But
doing.
I will see you in Virginia Beach in May.
Yes, and you're gonna come stay with me. Maybe we'll do
Yes.
another podcast. Would that be so fun?
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. Yes, absolutely.
Right
I
here in the
cannot
studio.
wait to spend more time with you. You're like one of those people that I could sit and I could talk to for hours and we'd always have
Yeah,
something to talk about. So
I feel the same.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
big
So
hugs and lots of love, my friend.
yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And we will talk soon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to schedule a reading with Cinnamon, her website is cinnamonmancini.com. And my
Thank,
website is sacredtarotcardreadings.com. Thank you for
thank you,
joining us. Oh,
Marissa.
and none of this is financial advice. All of this is our personal opinions and psychic predictions, not financial advice. All right. So thank you for watching. Take care, guys.
Good to see you, honey.
Okay. Bye bye.